Welcome to the Phil and H Travel Podcast. Is it worth it? Let's get right into today's deep dive because, honestly, we are looking at a place that has basically rewritten the rule book for travel.
Oh, completely rewritten it.
Right, so we are unpacking Formentera. It's the smallest inhabited Balearic island in Spain. And visually, it is this flawless 19-kilometer ribbon of white sand and just intensely turquoise water.
It looks like a postcard.
It really does.
Right.
But legally, it has suddenly become the most heavily regulated place in the entire country to arrive with a vehicle.
By far.
So today we're breaking down the real 2026 costs to visit. We're looking at the severe new vehicle caps, the physical beach restrictions, and, the absolute best and worst times to actually show up.
And we really need to map out those logistics traps, too, the ones that catch almost everyone off guard.
Exactly. And ultimately, we'll figure out whether this beautiful, highly restricted island actually makes sense for you, whether you're backpacking, traveling as a couple, bringing your family, or trying to work remotely.
And to really figure out if this island is going to be worth your time and money, you first have to grasp the sheer scale of the bottlenecks they've put in place for 2026.
Because things have changed.
Right. You can't just casually roll up to Formentera anymore. You really have to understand the unprecedented physical and legal walls they've built around it.
Right. So let's orient ourselves before we hit those walls. Imagine a map of Spain's 4 main Balearic islands out in the Mediterranean. Formentera is the tiny one.
Very tiny.
Yeah, sitting just 6 kilometers south of Ibiza. When I say tiny, I mean it's only 19 kilometers long from tip to tip. There is no airport.
Yeah, not at all.
And it's home to roughly 12,000 permanent residents. Essentially, the entire geography of the island runs on one single coastal road radiating out from the La Savina ferry port.
That one road is the crucial detail.
Right, because here is what blew my mind in the research. Last summer, more than 6,000 vehicles drove illegally on this tiny island without permits. 6,000.
Yeah, it's an astronomical number when you consider the physical space. That figure, those 6,000 illegal cars slipping through the cracks, that is the exact catalyst for the draconian enforcement we are seeing right now.
It forced their hand.
Exactly. Think about the concept of island carrying capacity. Picture a bathtub, right?
Okay, a bathtub.
The water flowing from the faucet represents the tourists and their rental cars arriving on the ferries. The drain represents the ferry taking them away at the end of the day.
Makes sense.
If you open that faucet all the way up, but the drain stays exactly the same size, the tub overflows, the bathroom floods.
Right, the infrastructure just buckles.
Yeah, a 19-kilometer landmass with one primary road simply cannot physically absorb an infinite number of cars. It completely breaks the local infrastructure.
I mean, you can't even park. You literally just have a single lane of traffic paralyzed by thousands of people looking for a spot that just does not exist.
Exactly. So the local government instituted the 2026 Formentera.eco cap.
And this is a hard cap, right?
A hard, digitized mathematical limit. Between June 1st and September 30th, they are allowing exactly 1,732 cars and exactly 122 motorcycles per day.
Wow. Not an estimate. Exactly that number.
That's it. Once that quota is hit, the digital doors are closed.
And there's more to it than just the quota.
Right, because layered on top of that strict quota, there's a brand new Balearic emissions tax applied to every single vehicle entering. It scales from 35 euros all the way up to 150 euros per car, just depending on how polluting it is.
And there's even a regional cap being voted through Parliament right now, too.
Yeah, to restrict overall volume even further. The urgency for 2026 is that this is the first full season of active enforcement and massive fines.
Wait, hold on. I get the bathtub analogy. I get the physical space issue. But taxing a car's emissions up to 150 euros just to roll off a ferry.
It's aggressive, I know.
Does that actually do anything to protect the natural environment of the island? Or does it just effectively turn Formentera into, a gated community for people who are wealthy enough to pay a 150 euro fine without even blinking?
It's a really sharp point.
I mean, it just feels like an environmental excuse for a wealth filter.
Honestly, the reality is a messy combination of both. Economically speaking, financial friction is the absolute fastest lever a local municipality can pull to instantly reduce crowd volume.
True, hitting the wall, it works.
Right. And you have to consider the ferry ticket, which ranges from 18 to 50 euros per adult for a one-way trip, or around 48 euros for a same-day round trip.
You add that all up.
Yeah, you add the ferry, plus the emissions tax, plus the actual eco permit fee. You are forcing the average spontaneous visitor to completely rethink their logistics.
Yeah, they just won't go.
But you're right, it is an undeniable socioeconomic filter. The island gets quieter, yes, but it becomes exclusively accessible to higher income brackets.
It's like an exclusive nightclub. The bouncers have decided the room is too full, so instead of just closing the door, they started charging a massive cover fee at the front.
That's exactly what it is.
But, if that legal window to visit is shrinking and the entry fee is skyrocketing in the summer, that totally changes when you should even attempt to go.
It dictates the entire calendar.
Because my instinct would be, well, I'll just beat the system and go in the winter.
Which is a logical thought, but a logistical nightmare.
Really? Why?
Because if you show up in February expecting a quiet, romantic winter getaway, you're going to find an island that is functionally closed. From November through March, Formentera hibernates.
Like, completely shuts down.
Completely. The beach bars are boarded up. The boutique hotels are locked. You'll find a tiny skeleton crew of year-round tavernas operating in the main village of San Francesc. And that is basically it.
Oh, wow. Okay, so winter's definitely out. When does it actually wake up?
Easter is when you see the first signs of life. But the water temperature in the Mediterranean stays well under 18 degrees Celsius until mid-May.
Oh, that is freezing.
Yeah, unless you brought a thick wetsuit, you aren't swimming. So your true sweet spots are actually very narrow.
Why are they?
You're looking at mid-May to mid-June and then mid-September to mid-October.
Okay, the shoulder seasons.
Exactly. During those windows, the sea is a beautiful 22 degrees or warmer. Crucially, the hotel rates drop by about 40% compared to the August peak.
That's a massive discount.
Huge. And that intense Formentera.eco cap is either not yet active in May or it's winding down at the end of September.
That makes perfect sense for the savvy traveler. But what about the people who, ignore the sweet spots and just go in the dead of summer? What does July and August actually look like on the ground?
It looks like a severe daily stress test of human patience.
That sounds awful.
It is. During those peak months, the ferries completely sell out. The vehicle cap hits that maximum daily limit of 1,732 every single morning.
Wow, every morning.
Yeah. The island's population essentially multiplies by 6 every single day. Accommodation prices go absolutely wild, averaging 280 euros or more per night just for a basic room.
That's insane. 6 times the population flooding a 19-kilometer strip of sand every morning.
It creates a profound infrastructure strain and, the psychological impact on both the 12,000 local residents and you as the tourist. It's intense.
Because it's not the relaxing vibe you paid for.
Exactly. You aren't getting that serene paradise you saw on social media. For instance, Caló de Mort.
Oh, I've seen pictures of that.
Right. It's this iconic, stunningly beautiful postcard beach. Well, it now has a hard access restriction running from May 15th to October 15th in 2026.
That's hitting.
No,
Yeah.
It is heavily monitored.
Which means, if I'm picturing myself, just wandering down a dusty dirt path, pushing aside some pine branches, and spontaneously discovering this secluded cove, I'm basically living in a fantasy.
A total fantasy.
Spontaneous island exploration is basically dead in the summer.
Completely dead. Spontaneity had been forcefully replaced by mandatory pre-planning and permits. And if you want to see the absolute zenith of this chaos, look at the first week of August.
Little break.
You absolutely must avoid the first week of August at all costs.
Why that specific week?
Because it's the exact moment when the traditional Italian summer holidays violently collide with the Spanish national vacaciones.
Oh, a double hit.
Yeah, you have 2 massive demographics descending on one tiny island simultaneously. The local infrastructure literally groans under the weight.
So to dodge that madness, you have to be really strategic. But, even getting to the starting line requires a whole journey. Let's talk about the actual physical arrival.
Right, the logistics of just getting there.
Because not having an airport completely dictates the kind of traveler that ends up here.
Exactly. The lack of an airport is the ultimate behavioral filter. You can't just catch a cheap direct flight from London or Berlin and be on the beach in 2 hours.
Nope. You have to fly into Ibiza Airport, IBZ.
Right. And from there, you're 6 kilometers from Ibiza town and 7 kilometers from the Carrera de Port ferry terminal.
Which means you're dragging your suitcase out into the Ibizan heat, trying to figure out local transport.
Exactly. You have two main options there. You can jump on the local bus 10, which runs every 15 to 30 minutes and only costs €3.50.
Not bad.
Or you can grab a taxi, which takes about 15 minutes and will run you around €20.
Okay. And then you still have the ferry.
Right. Once you finally get to the port, you're looking at a ferry ride over to La Savina on Formentera. You have operators like Balearia, Tresmapi, Acabas, and Formentera lines.
Plenty of options, at least.
Yeah, and the crossing takes anywhere from 29 to 58 minutes, running daily from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
I love that you call it a behavioral filter, because making the trip multi-step, a flight, a bus, and a ferry, it naturally deters the weekend clubbers looking for instant gratification.
It absolutely does.
If you just want to take shots and listen to techno, you're not going to endure a multi-hour logistical relay race to do it. You'll just stay in Ibiza.
Precisely. It attracts a much more deliberate traveler. By the time you step off that ferry at La Savina, you've earned it.
And the visual reward is immediate.
Immediate. You've got these historic, pink-hued salt flats to your left. You've got a pristine little marina filled with white yachts. And you just see that single road heading east across the island.
And that's where you figure out your wheels.
Right at the pier, you hit the rental line. A scooter is €25 per day, a bicycle is €10, and an electric car will set you back €90 per day.
The thing that always strikes me about that arrival is the sensory shift. Stepping off the ferry in La Savina feels exactly like walking out of a loud, sweaty rock concert in Ibiza and stepping into a tiny, quiet acoustic set.
That's a great way to put it.
There are no massive superclubs leaning over the port. There's no heavy EDM vibrating the pavement. The loudest sound you're going to hear is the wind blowing through the pine trees.
It's jarring in the best way possible.
It really is.
Yeah.
That sensory contrast, that aggressive quiet, is literally the product you are paying for.
It is the core commodity of Formentera. But to your point, while the wind in the pine trees is free, finding a place to sleep under them is notoriously expensive.
Oh, yeah.
The reality of 2026 accommodation costs is pretty brutal, and we need to look at who is actually getting priced out here.
Let's run the numbers. We've mapped out 4 specific traveler profiles with real 2026 pricing so you know exactly what you're up against.
Let's do it.
Let's start with the backpacker. If you're traveling on a shoestring listening to this right now, I have to be incredibly blunt. Formentera has 0 hostels, not a single one.
None. 0.
The absolute cheapest real option you have with 4 walls and a roof is Hostel La Savina, right near the ferry port. And that is going to cost you around €95 per night.
And that's just in the shoulder season.
Exactly. If you're okay with something a bit more rugged, there are camping-style apartments and residential Pujols for around €70. But unequivocally, this is the worst value Balearic Island for backpackers.
And it's really important to understand why there are no hostels. This isn't just some accident of real estate.
It's intentional.
Highly intentional. This is a complete systematic eradication of the budget demographic. The island's economic strategy is clear. They are replacing high-volume, low-spending tourism with low-volume, high-yield luxury tourism.
Quality over quantity from a financial perspective.
Right. They don't want 20 backpackers spending €10 a day. They want one yacht owner spending €2,000 a day. It is curated gentrification.
I mean, I'm still just trying to wrap my head around a place calling itself a hostel and charging €95 a night when the island isn't even at full capacity.
It bends the definition of the word.
At what point does a destination completely lose its soul? If young, budget-conscious travelers, artists, and students are intentionally priced out of ever experiencing it, doesn't it just become a sterile country club with sand?
Many locals would argue that the soul of the bohemian 1970s Formentera shifted a long time ago.
That's sad.
It's a valid concern, but the market has spoken, and the market is moving up tier. Let's look at the next profile, the Midrange Couple.
Okay, what are they looking at?
If you're in this bracket, you're looking at properties like Hotel Targa in the town of Pujols. It's got a pool, includes breakfast, and sits at roughly €160 per night in June.
Not terrible.
No, and if you want something slightly quieter, Hostel Rafale in Caló runs around €140 a night and actually gives you beautiful sea views.
That feels slightly more manageable, especially if you're splitting it. Then we have the family profile.
Right, traveling with kids.
If you're bringing the kids, a prime spot is the Insotel Hotel Formentera Playa at Quatchemigyorn. You get all-inclusive family rooms for €280 per night in June.
Which is a chunk of change.
It is, but the upside is you get direct beach access and actual kids club, so you can have, like, 5 minutes apiece.
Worth every penny.
Alternatively, there's Hotel Es Marez in San Francesc, sitting at €190 a night, which puts you much closer to the daily walkable village life.
And finally, we reach the top tier, the luxury traveler, which is where the island's modern economy truly hums.
This is where it gets wild.
Oh, yeah. Look at the Gecko Hotel and Beach Club at Midrange. It's adults only, and the rooms there average a staggering €480 per night in the shoulder season.
Just the shoulder season.
Yeah, if you try to book that in August, it climbs well over €700 per night.
Unbelievable.
For a more boutique, design-focused alternative, the Five Flowers Hotel in Espujols starts from €420 a night.
And wait, whatever room you book, you also have to factor in the Balearic Sustainable Tourism Tax when you check in, right?
Yes. In high season, that tax adds €4 per person per night at a 5-star property, €2 at a 4-star, and €1 at a 3-star.
Just quietly adding up.
And remember, that is completely separate from the one-off vehicle emissions tax if you brought a car over on the ferry.
So securing a bed is an undeniable luxury. But sleeping is really only half the battle. If you think the hotels are gouging you, wait until you have to buy groceries or sit down for dinner.
Yeah, the food scene.
The food scene here has its own intense economic ecosystem.
It really does. Gastronomically, you can describe Formentera as Balearic rustic with an Italian yacht overlay.
That is quite the combination.
It is. Because of the deep historical Italian tourist influence and the massive influx of high-end yachting money, the menus here are heavily skewed. You're going to see significantly more imported burrata and high-end ceviche here than you ever would on a neighboring, more traditional island like Menorca.
But there are still deep local roots, if you know what to order, right? Let's talk about the anchor dishes. First is pisek.
Classic.
Yeah, which is a traditional dried fish salad mixed with potatoes. It's very rustic, very local, and runs around €14. Then there's the Illetes.
Incredible dish.
This is a heavy, amazing traditional fisherman's stew. It usually comes in 2 courses. First the fish and potatoes, then the rice cooked in the broth. And that costs about €24.
Really filling, too.
Definitely. You also have the ensalada paisa, the classic Formentera farmer's salad made with local crusty bread and cheese, sitting around €12.
Those are the accessible classics. But let's say you're trying to save money by cooking for yourself. Your main supermarket anchors are Spar and Eroski, plus the smaller Mercat Pages farmers market that sets up in San Francesc on Wednesday and Saturday mornings.
Which all sounds great until you look at the receipt.
Right, because you have to prepare for the island premium. Let's actually think about what it takes to get a simple carton of milk onto a shelf in San Francesc. It doesn't just magically appear.
No, it goes on a journey.
A massive journey. That milk is processed on the Spanish mainland. Then it's loaded onto a huge commercial freight ferry in Valencia. That ferry crosses the Mediterranean to Ibiza.
Okay, that's one ferry.
Then, because Formentera has no deep water port capable of handling massive mainland freight ships, that milk has to be offloaded in Ibiza, put onto a smaller inter-island vessel, shipped across the strait, offloaded again in La Savina, loaded onto a local delivery truck, and finally driven to the spar.
Oh my goodness. So when you're paying €1.80 for a single liter of milk, you aren't really paying for the milk. You're paying for the diesel of 2 ships and 3 trucks.
Exactly. The markup is structural. A simple loaf of bread is €2. Interestingly, though, because of local production and volume, a perfectly decent bottle of Ibizan Rosé is remarkably reasonable at just €10.
Silver linings.
True. But you should also know that cheap grab-and-go street snacks are virtually non-existent, and the island has absolutely zero fast food chains. None.
So if you aren't cooking, you're eating out, and that's going to hit your wallet hard. A standard dinner for 2, maybe sharing some tapas and a bottle of wine at a mid-range beachside chiringuito like Kiosco 62 on Platja Maggiorn is going to run you between €80 and €110.
Which is a decent night out.
Right. But if you want to participate in the scene and eat at the famous Juan and Andrea on Illetes, prepare yourself. A lunch for a couple with fresh-caught fish there will easily top €250.
It's a fascinating cultural friction. You have these generations-old farmer dishes like Tex-Ex sitting right next to the exorbitant expectations of a €250 yacht crowd lunch.
Led by side.
Yeah. And if you are planning to participate in that high-end dining scene, we really have to talk about etiquette and reservations.
Okay, let's talk etiquette. First off, Topless sunbathing is completely normal and widely accepted across the island. But if you're looking for full nudity, that is legally restricted to specific areas.
You can't just do it anywhere.
Right, like Esquivel d'Ambora and certain designated parts of Illetes, you can't just strip down anywhere. And secondly, the dining etiquette. Making beach restaurant reservations is absolutely essential from July onward.
You cannot wing it.
I always try to explain the restaurant reservation scene in July on Formentera like this. Imagine trying to secure front row tickets to a massive hit Broadway show on opening night, but you walk up to the box office 5 minutes before the curtain goes up.
It's just not happening.
No, if you think you're going to stroll off the beach at 2 p.m. in your swimsuit and casually grab a table for 4 at a nice chiringuito, you're living in an absolute fantasy. The tables were booked weeks ago.
Spontaneity in the high-season dining scene is effectively dead. So if we take all of this milk at almost €2, a nice lunch hitting €250, the ferry costs, let's actually tally up what a single day costs you across different budget brackets.
Let's do the math. We'll start with the absolute minimum to survive and still enjoy the island. The low budget sits at approximately €140 per day.
Okay, how do you manage that?
Well, you're sharing a room at Hostel La Savina, which breaks down to €48 per person. You grab a quick bakery breakfast for €4. You buy a supermarket lunch for the beach for €8. You treat yourself to a chiringuito dinner with wine for €35.
Get around.
You rent a bicycle for €10 to get around. You split the round-trip ferry cost over a 4-day stay, which averages out to €12 a day. You pay your €2 tourist tax. And then you drop €25 on a single sunbed.
Let's dissect the psychology of that low budget for a second. To even hit that €140 mark, it requires intense daily micromanagement.
Oh, absolutely.
You're constantly calculating. You have to split the room. You have to split the ferry over multiple days to make the math work. And you're literally eating out of a supermarket for lunch.
It's a hustle.
Now, contrast that with the mid-budget, which is about €280 per day. Here, you're sharing a double room at Hotel Tarba for €80 per person. You have your €12 hotel breakfast. You enjoy a proper beach club lunch for €35.
That sounds much better.
Your mid-range dinner is €55. You upgrade to a scooter rental for €25. You grab 2 beers at sunset for €14. Your tourist tax is €2. And you chip in on a day trip boat share for €50.
It's definitely more comfortable.
Yeah.
But what really stands out to me on that low budget is the €25 sunbed.
Yeah, that stings.
Right. When your entire daily budget is €140 and you're eating an €8 supermarket sandwich for lunch, dropping €25 just to have a piece of canvas to sit on feels like an enforced tax for shade.
It does.
It really makes you wonder, can you truly relax and enjoy the island on that low budget? Or is it just a daily exercise in severe financial restriction?
For a lot of people, it will feel deeply restrictive. But to finish the scale, let's look at the high budget. The sky is the limit here, but a realistic high-end day is about €850 per day per person.
Wow. Okay, break that down.
You're splitting a room at the Gecko Hotel, costing €240 per person. You have a lavish €30 hotel breakfast. You do the famous Juan and Andrea lunch for €125.
There's the lunch.
Yep. You go for a fine dining dinner at €180. You rent an electric car for €90. You charter a private boat for a half day at €250. Your luxury tourist tax is €4. And you rent a pair of sunbeds at the exclusive Beso Beach for €60.
That high budget perfectly illustrates the limitless ceiling of the Balearic yacht economy. There's always a more expensive bottle of wine, a more exclusive table, a larger private boat.
Always. But here is the critical piece of information for anyone listening. Sticking to even the mid-budget is entirely impossible if you happen to fall into one of the island's 3 major, highly expensive logistical potholes.
Oh, the traps.
Yes. These are traps that catch hundreds of visitors out every single year, and they will completely blow up your daily math.
Let's map these out so our listeners don't get caught. We have 3 named logistics traps for you to avoid. Trap number 1, the Formentera.eco permit ambush.
This one is brutal.
The way this works is just harsh. Visitors rent a car in Ibiza, they drive it onto the car ferry between June and September, assuming everything is fine, and boom, they get slapped with a massive fine the moment their tires touch the pavement in La Savina.
It happens constantly. Why? Because they didn't realize they needed a pre-booked permit.
They just didn't know.
Right. The reality of that strict 1,732 daily car cap is that you absolutely must apply at Formentera.eco before sailing. And here's the specific nuance that catches people. Rental cars booked from agencies actually located on Formentera are already counted within the island's quota, but cars brought over from Ibiza are not.
So what's the fix? How do you avoid the ambush?
Two ways. Either you rent locally from a La Savina-based agency like Autoscasavi when you arrive, or if you absolutely must bring a car from Ibiza, you have to apply for your eco permit at least 7 days ahead of your trip.
Seems simple, if you know.
Right. But the existence of this trap is a direct result of the friction between old tourist expectations, the freewheeling, unstructured island life of the 1990s, colliding with the hard, digitized regulatory borders of 2026.
Makes sense. Okay, trap number 2 is what we call the Illetes beach fee shock. The setup here is simple. Tourists drive up to the world-famous Illetes beach expecting free parking and free sand. Because it's a beach,
Yeah.
only to be met with a €5 park entry fee per car, plus another 25 to 40 euros for a pair of sunbeds.
Surprise?
Exactly. The reality is that Ses Illetes isn't just a regular public beach. It's located entirely inside the Ses Salines Natural Park. Parking is strictly enforced and limited. And if you think you're going to grab a bite at the legendary Juan and Andrea restaurant while you're there, forget it. They require reservations weeks in advance during July.
But the fix for the Illetes beach fee shock is incredibly straightforward. Arrive by bicycle. Bicycles are granted free entry to the natural park. Bring your own towel, set up on the sand, and avoid the exorbitant sunbeds entirely.
Just skip the extras.
Yeah, it's the only way to experience the best beach on the island without feeling extorted.
And then we have trap number 3, which is arguably the worst one to fall into, the last ferry miss. The scenario is that day trippers from Ibiza get to Formentera, they start relaxing, they have a few drinks, and they completely underestimate the physical scale of the island.
They lose track of time.
Exactly. They miss the 9 p.m. last ferry back and end up having to pay an agonizing 180 euros for a last-minute emergency hotel room because they are physically stranded.
It's a critical error in time management. The reality you have to face is that the final Trasmopi sailing back to Ibiza leaves La Savina at 9 p.m. sharp.
They don't wait around.
No, the ferry operators do not care if you are running late. They will not hold the boat for you. If you are having a late dinner at a restaurant on the South Coast, you are a full 25-minute drive away from the port.
I always think of the last ferry miss like the story of Cinderella. Except instead of a magical carriage turning into a pumpkin and losing a delicate glass slipper, you lose 180 euros for a desperate emergency hotel room just because you wanted one more glass of wine on the South Coast.
Expensive glass of wine.
Right. The fix is non-negotiable. If you're day tripping, set an alarm and make sure you're physically back at La Savina by 8 p.m. If you insist on eating dinner on the South Coast, just commit to staying overnight.
Exactly. Don't play chicken with the ferry schedule. But setting those financial traps aside, we should talk about physical safety.
It's important.
Because while your wallet might be in danger, the actual physical safety of the island is quite surprising, and it comes with its own unique set of quirks.
It's a fascinating contrast. Statistically speaking, Formentera is among the safest destinations in the entire Mediterranean. Violent crime is almost entirely non-existent.
Very rare.
Yeah, when we talk about a risk hierarchy here, we aren't talking about muggings or pickpockets in crowded squares.
Yeah.
The realistic risks are entirely environmental and infrastructural.
Right. You're looking at things like severe sunstroke at highly exposed, unshaded beaches like Migyorn.
Yeah.
You're looking at the occasional theft from unattended bicycles if you leave them out late in the Espujols nightlife area. But the biggest physical risk by far is scooter accidents on the winding, single-lane roads.
We mentioned earlier how solo female travelers consistently rate Formentera as the single most comfortable Balearic island to visit alone. The main tourist hub of Espujols is well lit, it's perfectly walkable until 2 a.m., and honestly, the whole island feels naturally policed simply by its small size. Everyone kind of sees everyone.
And families get an incredibly easy ride here, too. The water at beaches like Illetes and Espujols is remarkably calm and shallow, making it incredibly safe for young kids.
The water is perfect for kids.
It is. However, families do need to navigate the strict local timetable. Most of the island's pharmacies and supermarkets completely close down for a siesta between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. If your kid suddenly needs baby formula or you run out of sunscreen at 3 p.m., you are out of luck until they reopen.
So the vibe is incredibly safe.
Hmm.
But I want to go back to what you said about the scooters. It feels like a paradox.
It is the absolute paradox of safety. You are practically guaranteed not to be mugged, but the infrastructure itself poses the greatest physical danger. Think about the PM 820 main road. For half of its entire length, it severely lacks a dedicated cycle lane. Now, combine that narrow road with those 6,000 illegal cars we talked about earlier, and then throw in hundreds of tourists renting scooters who have absolutely no experience driving a two-wheeled vehicle.
That's a recipe for disaster.
It creates a genuinely dangerous traffic dynamic. You have to be incredibly vigilant on the roads because the threat isn't crime, it's chaos.
It's such a specific type of vigilance. But overall, the sense of personal security is a huge draw. It's also so important to note that LGBTQ plus travelers find Formentera to be deeply welcoming.
Very much so.
Yeah, Escaval d'Amboras is a long-standing, famously gay-friendly beach that has an incredibly inclusive atmosphere. When you reflect on all of this, the profound comfort it offers for solo female travelers and the LGBTQ plus community is really special. Finding that true, unshakable sense of personal security is rare and incredibly valuable in global travel.
I agree completely. It's a huge part of the appeal. So synthesizing all of this, keeping the intense logistics, the high budgets, the vehicle caps, and these specific safety quirks in mind, we really have to look at the actual payoff of taking the trip.
Is it worth the hassle?
Right. What are the highest highs you will experience to make this worth it? And what are the honest lowest lows?
Let's start with the absolute best moments, because when this island delivers, it really delivers. Watching the sunset at the Cap de Barbaria lighthouse at around 9 p.m. in June is life-changing.
Stunning.
It's just you, the cliffs, and the endless sea. Taking that first silent swim at Illetes before 10 a.m., when the water is perfectly still, the sand is untouched, and the beach is completely empty, is pure magic.
The water is unbelievable then.
Yeah. Sitting down to a massive plate of traditional boulet de paix at Can Raffaele will be one of the best meals of your life. Browsing the Wednesday Pages Market in San Francesc feels wonderfully authentic, and taking a slow bike ride along the old Roman green route from San Francesc all the way to Caló is just breathtaking.
Those are the moments that end up on the postcards. But we promise the honest verdict, which means looking at the genuine disappointments.
Got to give the bad with the good.
First and foremost, the island is just genuinely expensive for what it is. When you combine the ferry tickets, the vehicle permit, the restaurant prices, and the €280 a night hotel rates, you are forced into a Balearic yacht economy regardless of your actual income. You will feel the financial pinch constantly.
And if you're coming expecting a party, you're going to be severely let down. The nightlife is almost entirely non-existent beyond 4 main bars and espools. If you are a clubber, you absolutely should just sleep on Ibiza.
We also mentioned that the Caló de Mort access restriction means that highly sought-after, Instagram-famous beach is now permit, only starting from mid-May. You can't just walk up to it anymore.
Spontaneity ruined.
But perhaps the most jarring disappointment is the crowd dynamic at the peak of summer. On a bad day in July, the cruise ship day trippers coming over from Ibiza can easily push the crowd at Illetes past 5,000 people.
That is exactly the clash I struggle with. You have this idyllic morning calm before 10 a.m., and then the absolute chaos of midday when the ferries start dumping day trippers.
It totally changes the vibe.
If the entire selling point of this island, the reason you're paying €280 a night, is quiet, empty beauty, but 5,000 cruise passengers suddenly show up at Illetes in the afternoon, isn't the core promise of Formentera fundamentally broken in July?
For those specific peak hours, yes, the illusion is completely shattered. It's the dark side of the Instagram reality loop. Places like Caló de Mort or Illetes become so virally popular online that they attract masses of people.
And then they have to regulate it.
Exactly. The masses then necessitate the very permits and strict regulations that ruin the spontaneous, wild feeling that made the locations famous in the first place. It is a completely self-defeating cycle of modern tourism.
So if you're listening to this, and those honest disappointments, the extreme costs, the crowds, the permits, if they outweigh the magical moments for you, you absolutely need a backup plan.
You need options.
Where else can you go?
We have 2 excellent alternatives that solve different problems. The first is Menorca, Spain. You take a 2-hour ferry from Mallorca to get there. It offers very similar, stunning turquoise water and white sand, but the entire island is a designated UNESCO biosphere.
That's a huge plus.
Crucially, there is no vehicle cap. The logistics are significantly easier, and the hotel averages sit much lower, near €140 per night. It beautifully contrasts the heavy-handed regulatory borders of Formentera with relative logistical ease.
I always compare Menorca to that really reliable, low-maintenance friend you've known forever. You don't have to jump through hoops to hang out with them. Whereas Formentera is the brilliant, stunning, but highly demanding diva that requires a massive amount of your time, your money, and your endless patience.
That's a very accurate assessment.
What's the second alternative?
The second alternative is staying in the north of Ibiza, specifically the Santolleria area, also in Spain. You utilize the exact same flight and ferry infrastructure to arrive, but it is vastly quieter than Ibiza town.
Nice compromise.
Yeah, it's much cheaper, averaging around 130 euros per night for accommodation. And the beauty of this option is that the massive club scene is still available to you just a short taxi ride away if you suddenly decide you want that high energy. Menorca gives you the quiet nature without the bureaucratic headache, and Northern Ibiza gives you the Balearic vibe with a much lower price tag and more optionality.
Okay, it is time to bring all of these facts, all of these prices, and these alternatives together. We need to answer the title question of our show for the 5 specific listener profiles we laid out at the beginning. Is Formentera actually worth it in 2026?
Let's do it.
We're going to hit you with the rapid-fire matrix. Let's find out exactly which bucket you fall into. First up, the backpacker.
The verdict is a hard no.
No debate.
None. There are 0 hostels on the island. You are facing the island is genuinely great for kids under 10 years old because of the incredibly calm, shallow water and fantastic properties like the Insotel at Midrange. Plus, there's no thumping nightlife noise to wake them up.
That's a big win for parents.
But here are the conditions. You're looking at a 280-plus daily hotel cost. You have to navigate the exhausting logistics of lugging a pushchair onto ferries, and you have to meticulously plan around the siesta-closed pharmacies. Therefore, it makes it a luxury family choice, absolutely not a budget family vacation.
Fourth profile, the luxury traveler.
The verdict is a resounding yes.
They have it easy.
They do. Properties like the Gecko Hotel and restaurants like Juan and Andrea genuinely compete with the highest-end experiences in Mykonos, but they do it at about 20% less cost. The strict vehicle caps actually work in your favor here, keeping the roads quieter than anywhere comparable in the Mediterranean. And the yacht anchorage scene at Illetes is truly world-class from June all the way through September.
And our final profile, the digital nomad.
The verdict is NO.
Just flat no.
Flat no. While the fiber optic internet is perfectly fine in the main town of San Francesc, it is incredibly rare elsewhere on the island. Long-stay winter rentals are functionally impossible because the island effectively closes down and hibernates. And if you try to stay during the summer, the accommodation costs will wipe out your entire nomad budget within 2 weeks. Do yourself a favor and stay in Palma de Mallorca instead.
It is a fascinating matrix. When you synthesize all of this, you see exactly why Formentera is aggressively curating its demographic. They are deliberately favoring high-end, highly prepared, logistics-savvy travelers who are willing to pay a premium for preserved nature.
But this leaves us with a vital question for you to consider long after this deep dive ends. As destinations globally watch Formentera successfully implement these strict eco-caps and high-pricing models to manage crowds, are we looking at the inevitable future blueprint for all beautiful, fragile places on Earth? Will spontaneous, budget-friendly travel to the world's most stunning locations soon be nothing more than a relic of the past?
If this gave you the honest verdict you needed, follow the show. New episodes drop every day.
That is the honest verdict from Phil and H.